Alright, let's try this again. What's up, Destiny Makers and Takers? Influencer of influencers, here to influence you to live your stress-free best life. So, every time I get this live going, y'all, for some strange reason, it just want to break up when everybody come in here. But let me drop it again, what's going on in this live. My top 10 subscribers, you can get one of my Vortex bracelets. They're 100% copper, even the color. And this one has shungite for the stone. This one got clear quartz, but you could put any type of stone you want to put in there. And like I said, even the color copper is 100% copper. And my top 10 subscribers, we gonna create your bracelet. So that's the thing about them, ain't none of them the same. So you can let me know what color you want, what style you want. There's a lot of different, like, I'll show you. Like this one kind of got like a zigzag on the band, and then you know, the colors is a little different. But then my joint right here is pink, of course, but the band got like triangles on it. So like here go another, just a band that's kind of straight, but all the bands got different styles on them. And yeah, so I make them from scratch. But yeah, this is the time right now to grab your refreshments, grab your drink, or grab, I don't know, something to eat, whatever your choice of chill time is. I don't know if you burn, but if you burn, go roll up while I play this little music for a sec, and we'll listen to the music while we wait for everybody to get ready, and then we'll get right into the Brian Tracy, and we'll watch a little bit of that, and then we'll talk about it. So um yeah, same song I did, 'cause, you know, they kind of messed me up with the crackleness.
Do not have a DUI, you're paying car insurance. Exhale. Only time you see me inhale right before I exhale. Let's chill. I can't say that. Try to stand tall, no, I can't lay back. Every time I fall, I ran right back. Now I'm in the palm of his hand like that. Let's just keep it going, we ain't never stopping. Running to the Lord, the devil running out of options. Oof, I gave God the will, he said hop in. Like Jehovah's Witnesses, my songs be knocking. That is right, okay. From darkness to light, it's night and day. Hey, a bird can't fly when inside a cage. Never gon' perish like where the Eiffel stay. Cause I'm good, dog, I'm fine, y'all. We praise God all night long. My hands high, my pride low. We can't die this lifelong. All day to the night to the evening. I'm thankful that my heart is beating. My praise is fighting a demon. Stay faithful when I don't see it or feel it. Some days I don't feel like it. Some days I wonder should I quit. Some days I wonder where time went. Some days I wonder where God been. Where God been. I've been trying to find him. I've been trying to find him. Every time I try to talk, all I hear is just because you don't hear God doesn't mean he doesn't hear you. Just because you don't feel his presence doesn't mean he's not with you. Me and God closer than we ever been. Now the devil knocking on my door, but I can't let him in. I just go to your father and my friend. Nowadays I open the Bible more than Instagram. I just wanna lift my hands and scream and shout like Will I am. My God so good. He gave me way more than I thought he could. We knocking on the devil, we don't knock on wood. Cause what's good luck to a God this good? Ooh, I'm not good enough, but I'm thankful God is. Even when I'm weak, my God is the strongest. I stopped telling God how big my problems are and started telling all my problems how big my God is. My God is giving me strength and guidance. I'm nothing, God is everything. So that means
jump right into this brain crazy because
optional. Many of us like to think that, well, I'll take a little responsibility here, I'll take a little responsibility there. No, the acceptance of responsibility is not optional. Years old, you have no choice in the matter. As a matter of fact, there are very few things in life over which you have no choice, but you have no choice in this. It is mandatory. It is mandatory if you wish to fulfill your potential, if you wish to become everything you're capable of becoming, you must take full responsibility for bringing about the circumstances, for making the changes, for making the hard decisions necessary. If you take the word responsibility, you can break it into two words, response and ability. And one of the things which I've learned as I've studied history is that all of life is a series of challenges, difficulties, problems, setbacks, obstacles to face. And the difference between the winners and losers in life is not the difference in problems, because everybody has problems. And most people, and many people, have more and bigger problems than you or I could ever dream of. The difference in life, the difference between winners and losers, is the responses to the problems. Many years ago, a man named Oswald Spengler wrote a book in which he talked about what he called the challenge-response theory. The challenge-response theory simply said that civilizations grow and decline to the degree to which they meet challenges effectively and respond effectively. A small society starts out small, and almost invariably it will be challenged by either an external enemy or nature or weather or something else. If the society responds in a positive and constructive way to the challenge, the society grows. As it grows, it triggers additional challenges, difficulties. If it responds to them effectively, it grows some more. Oswald Spengler studied the 21 great empires of human civilization and found that every single one followed this cycle. As long as the civilization continued to rise to the challenge, it continued to grow stronger and stronger. The reason why this analogy is so important is that we as human beings are exactly the same. We grow to the degree to which we respond effectively, to the degree to which we rise to the challenges without making excuses that life throws at us. And when we look at the great men and women of history, whether it's Albert Schweitzer or Winston Churchill or George Washington or Abraham Lincoln or Franklin Delano Roosevelt, we look at those great people, we find that they were always people that rose to the challenges of the time. If ever you wish to be capable of rising to great challenges, what you have to do is you have to start off on a daily basis rising to small challenges, which means no matter what happens, you accept the challenge, you accept the responsibility, you refuse to make excuses, and you go forward. Now, there's three areas in life, in our modern life, which you must be very, very aware of. The first area is the political area. If you look around, you will find that there is a great drive toward the government doing it, the government being responsible. Make the government responsible. What people are doing is they want the government to be their parent. They want the government to protect them and take care of them. But as the more you vote for politicians to do things for you, the more you give politicians control. You see, you can never give away responsibility. You can only give away control. How do you give away control? You give away control in terms of voting for them to spend more of your money, regulate more of your businesses, tax away more of your income, and so on. The second area, so let me just finish this. The urge towards statism, collectivism, socialism, large government, and so on is all aimed at somehow making the government, that faceless bunch of bureaucrats, responsible for the challenges of our own lives. The second area where this is prevalent is in the criminal justice system. In the criminal justice system, you will find that the one characteristic of all criminals is that they refuse to accept responsibility for their crime. It was always someone else or something else. It was always their childhood or the background or the other guys. That the way that people get out of the criminal justice system is they accept responsibility for the crimes they've committed. And they say, I did this, you made me do it, I am responsible, and they stop going back to jail. The third area is in medicine. Today we know that almost all of our problems in medicine are psychological in origin, or we inflict things on ourselves. The average American or Canadian is about 10 to 20 pounds overweight. In medicine, we expect the doctor to be responsible. Just imagine how we would take, what kind of care you would take of yourself if you were on a desert island for life, with no doctors, no nurses, no hospitals, no medicine, no nothing, where you had nothing to fall back on. Very, very important point. So all around you in society, you're going to notice this clamor, this demand, I am not responsible. Make somebody else responsible. But this is the key. Remember, you are always free to choose. You are free to choose your responses. You are free to choose the quality of your emotional life. Do you know that you decide how you're going to feel by how you are going to respond? You decide when to get angry, when to be happy, when to be unhappy. You decide what your attitude is going to be when you get up in the morning. You decide the quality of your physical life. You're the one who decides what you eat, what you drink, what you don't eat and drink. You determine the quality of your financial life. You're the one who determines the quality and quantity of the work that you contribute. In every case, you're free to choose what you want. If you want things to be different, the starting point is to accept full, unqualified responsibility for your life. I first discovered this whole concept of responsibility when I was 21 years old. I was living in a little apartment. I was working on a construction job. It was 35 degrees below zero outside. I didn't have a car. I didn't have any money in the bank. My clothes were old. I had failed out of high school. And I looked around me in that cold winter in that little apartment with no future and not much of a past. And I said to myself, if ever I want anything to change, it's up to me. That's the time where I really got scared. Life different. And if I can get only one point across to you in this simple segment, this little segment is this, is that the starting point of flying to the stars, the starting point of taking complete charge of your life, the starting point of great success and great achievement is to accept complete, unconditional responsibility. If it's to be, it's up to me. If it's to be, it's up to you. Section 6, eliminating negative emotions. Continuing on the subject of responsibility versus irresponsibility, many years ago, back in 1972, I began a study in an area of metaphysics that dealt with the psychology of the evolution of human potential. And one of the things that leaped out of those pages at me, and I've never really have recovered from it, was the discussion of the connecting link between irresponsibility and negative emotions. And the fact that negative emotions are the great blocking emotions or crippling emotions of your life and my life. If the whole purpose of life, if you like, is to achieve higher levels of peace of mind, happiness, contentment, satisfaction, and so on, we have to sit down and we have to look and say, what stops us, or what is blocking us, or what gets in the way of us really enjoying our lives? And you'll find invariably it's negative emotions of some kind. Now, I'm not talking about the negative emotions that are associated with someone dying or with a great loss. I'm talking about the negative emotions that we experience on a day-to-day basis that rob us of peace of mind, rob us of health and energy, affect our loving relationships, get in the way of our financial independence, rob us of a feeling of fulfillment, and so on. So we're going to talk in this session about eliminating negative emotions, and I want to bring us back to this whole discussion of responsibility. This is one of the most important things that I've ever found in my life. It's simply this, is that if we take a graph or chart, and come with me for a second and let's chart this, and we take from the highest to the lowest, and up here we have a totally responsible person. This is a person who is completely self-assured, completely self-responsible, makes no excuses at all. And down here at the other end we have an irresponsible person, a person who makes excuses for everything. Now, this is the positive end of the scale, this is the negative end of the scale. Every one of us, you and I, are somewhere on this scale moving up or down with every decision that we take. Now, we've found, and this is what got to me, and I said a little bit earlier, that there's a one-to-one relationship between how much you feel you are in control of your own life and how positive or how happy you are. Well, there's a one-to-one relationship between the amount of responsibility you accept and the amount of control you experience in your life. And there's a one-to-one relationship between the amount of responsibility and control you accept and the amount of freedom that you feel that you have. Freedom is the indispensable requirement for happiness. That true success, true happiness in life means being free to live your life your own way as you decide. without anybody else telling you what to do. Living your life as a bird, free as a bird, to do whatever you want. Well, there's a direct relationship between responsibility, control, and freedom, and there's a direct relationship between these three and positive emotions. Now, positive emotions are the great emotions. Positive emotions are happiness, exuberance and enthusiasm and excitement and so on. Now, down at the other end, however, we have an attitude of irresponsibility. And what does that lead to? This is what shocked me so much when I first learned it. It leads to a lack of control. Is that to the degree to are irresponsible, we lose control. Our inner selves disintegrate and fragment. It also leads to a lack of freedom because we no longer see ourselves as free agents choosing the direction of our own lives. We see ourselves as pawns, as victims, if you like, of external forces. And a lack of control and freedom leads to negative emotions. When I first began to understand this, I thought, well, yeah, but what about my parents? And what about my childhood? And what about my condition? I didn't have a very good job. And what about my friends? I had crummy friends. And what about my health? And what about the weather? And what about the economy? When I began to realize that, put all that aside, if your highest aim, your highest goal is positive emotions of happiness, joy, freedom, enthusiasm, and so on, then you have to stop making excuses. Now, Carl Menninger, the great psychoanalyst, said a very interesting thing ago. He said that physical ailments are all different, caused by different bacteria, different viruses, and so on. He said, but mental illness is the same illness, simply spread along a spectrum from the least to the worst. And Thomas Szasz, the psychiatrist, said in his book, The Myth of Mental Illness, that there is no such thing as mental illness. There are merely varying degrees of irresponsibility. So when we say that an irresponsible person is not only negative, we say an irresponsible person is also mentally ill. A totally responsible person is mentally healthy. How does this affect you? Well, I know you want to advance as much as you can in life, or you wouldn't be going through the efforts of taking a program like this. There is a direct relationship between the amount of responsibility you accept for the results of your organization and the amount of power, influence, position, prestige, and status you will have in your work now and in the future. At the top of the graph of responsibility, we have people who accept total responsibility, and power and opportunity gravitates toward them. Down at the other end, we have no power, powerlessness, until you reach the extreme example of a person who's totally irresponsible, completely out of control, who has to be constrained in a straitjacket and locked up in a padded room for their own safety and for the safety of others. Completely powerless, completely without control or freedom. Now, every time we make a decision to be self-responsible, we move up on this graph. Every time we make a decision to make excuses, we move down in this graph. So let's take it a little bit further, and let's talk about the relationship between negative emotions and irresponsibility so that you understand it perfectly clearly. And a perfect example is this. Imagine here is a tree, all right? Here's a tree, and here is the bushes. This is what is called a negative emotion tree. In the negative emotion tree grows the predominant negative emotions: fear, doubt. Many people have considered that self-doubt is the most destructive of all negative emotions, holds you back more than you could imagine. Also, hate is a negative emotion. Then there's envy. There's resentment. And then, of course, there's resentment's sister, guilt. These are all the big negative emotions. These are the ones that have led the hit parade for years. There's about 54 different negative emotions, but these are the top ones. And if you take these negative emotions and you boil them all down, and you can put in your own favorite, by the way. Everybody has their own favorite negative emotion. Jealousy could be yours. Self-pity is a good, strong one that's doing well. But if you boil it down, you find that all negative emotions eventually boil down to anger. Either inwardly expressed, that is where you make yourself sick, or outwardly expressed, that is where you make other people sick. And this negative emotion tree, if we just take a look at its structure, we find the negative emotion tree has a root system. The root system is where the nutrients come from that keep the negative emotion growing and keep the fruit of the negative emotion growing and blossoming. We look at the root system, we say, what are the nutrients? What keeps negative emotions going? What are the fertilizer? What is it that you heap on the fire, if you like, or put into the ground? We find that there's two things essential to keep negative emotions alive. The first is justification. Justification. That's merely telling yourself and anybody else who will listen why you are justified in having this emotion. And the other is what we call identification. Identification means taking things personally. That's why, of course, they suggest that a person who acts as their own lawyer, too, because we become so personally identified with our own situation, and so do you, and wrapped up in it. So we find that it's not possible for you to be negative about anything for very long unless you can justify or have a reason for it and explain it to other people, or unless you can identify. Somebody comes in from the parking lot and says they ran into a car in the parking lot. Doesn't bother you at all because you don't identify with it. Now, if they said they just ran into a car in the parking lot and it's your car in the parking lot and the person's gone, now you can become extremely upset. Remember this, however, that we always choose these responses. I'll come back to this in a second. So how do we get rid of justification? How do we start the root system of the negative emotion tree? The way that we get rid of justification is by becoming non-judgmental. In the Bible it says, judge not that ye be not judged. And since the Bible is, amongst many other things, a book of philosophy and metaphysics and how to live, being non-judgmental means that you just refrain from judging. Hold back from judging. Instead of casting a judgment that somebody is guilty of something, somebody has done something, just remain open and neutral. Just remaining neutral, and that's the key, stops the negative emotion from getting going. One of the things that we know about negative emotions, and I've studied them for years, is that negative emotions start off like a spark. And as they are fed, as we dwell upon them, as we justify them, as we become judgmental about the situation, they start to grow and grow and grow until they absolutely consume our minds. Now, with regard to identification, which is taking things personally, what we do is what is called, we disidentify. We objectify, or we again remain neutral. We try to keep it at arm's length. We say there is a problem, but I am not the problem. There is a difficulty, but the difficulty is not me, and we keep it at arm's length. So these two, once we begin so personally. However, the key to getting rid of negative emotions, and this is the most important part of this, is the trunk. Where negative emotions come from. Negative emotions come from inside you. Negative emotions are not contained in external situations. Negative emotions are not caused by other people or other situations. Negative emotions are caused by your response to other situations. Perfect example. Two people meet the same situation, a traffic jam, a rude waiter, whatever it happens to be, and one person gets all upset and uptight and angry, the other person lets it go off their back. Another example. The same person, 2 different days. One day they've had an argument or a flat tire or they're late for work, they get into a traffic jam and they're angry and they're uptight. The next day, they leave with plenty of time, they had a lovely breakfast with their family, they got lots of time to get to work, they have a traffic jam, it doesn't bother them at all. In both cases, it's an example of that the negative emotion does not come from the situation, is that you are always free to choose the quality of your emotional life. Is that you choose to become angry. Now understand this, nobody makes you feel anything. Nobody makes you feel angry. Nobody makes you feel tense. Nobody makes you feel upset. You always decide how you're going to feel, and then if you're not careful, you will fall into a negative habit pattern of blaming the other person. Blame is the core of all negative emotions. When you stop blaming, you cut down the negative emotion tree. You cut it off, you kill it, and all the negative emotions die simultaneously. It's almost exactly as if this negative emotion tree were a Christmas tree and it were plugged into the wall. And the negative emotions were Christmas tree lights. And you took this plug and you jerked it out of the wall, what would happen? Well, what would happen is that all the negative emotions, the lights, would go out simultaneously, just like that. How do you do this? You do this by using the law of substitution. Remember, the law of substitution says that the conscious mind can only hold one thought at a time. It's the thought that the conscious mind holds that determines how the emotions will react, how the subconscious mind will react. Since it can only hold one thought at a time, what you do is you knock out the thought that is causing the negative emotion, the blame thought, and you replace it with this affirmation: I am responsible. I am responsible. I am responsible. This, in conjunction with I like myself, I am responsible, is the most powerful, positive affirmation you can use, because the instant that you say I am responsible, you exert complete control over your emotional life. The instant you say I am responsible, suddenly you are back in the driver's seat. You cannot say I am responsible and feel a negative emotion simultaneously. The one knocks the other one out of your conscious mind. And you could start off, for instance, each one of us has a situation that causes us a lot of aggravation. You have a situation, maybe a person, but every time you think about it, you get angry. Every time you think about it, you get cross or you get distracted. What you do is whenever you start to think about that situation, neutralize it by being responsible. Wait a minute, I am responsible. Is it a relationship? Who got yourself in a relationship? Did somebody put you there at gunpoint, or did you get into it by yourself? Is it a job? Is it an investment? Is it a health problem of some kind? In every case, accept responsibility. Now, there's a big difference between acceptance and responsibility. Let me just write this up. It's responsibility versus blame. Responsibility versus blame. What is blame? Blame always looks backward toward the past. Blame looks toward the past, toward what cannot be done, toward what can't be changed. Responsibility always looks to the future. So people say, well, when you accept responsibility, isn't it the same as saying you're to blame? No. It's the same as saying that you are in charge of the quality of your thinking from this moment onward. So let us say that you come out to the parking lot and somebody's run into your car. Now, you have two choices. You can become angry and upset and run around and scream and shout, or you can act in a responsible manner, do everything possible to trace the culprit, and other than that, you can live with it maturely. So responsibility always looks to the future. Responsibility always asks this question when faced with a problem. What can we do? Not who did it, but what can we do from here? Where do we go from here? What can we do? This is the question of the responsible person. We don't cry over spilt milk. We just say, all right, what's the solution? And we get on with the game. The irresponsible person always says, who did it? And is obsessed with finding out who did it and then taking whatever blame there is and apportioning it so that everybody gets their fair share of the blame, which of course does nothing to resolve the difficulty. So the key to cutting down the negative emotion tree is using the axe and eliminating blaming. The day that you begin to eliminate blaming from your life, is that you cannot advance in life except to the degree to which you get rid of your negative emotions. You cannot make any progress. You cannot go any further than where you are right this minute except to the degree to which you leave your negative emotions behind. Now, by the way, with regard to the negative emotion that you have that's associated with another person or situation, it's difficult to accept responsibility. It's difficult to say, I am responsible initially, because you've been blaming that person for so long. So sometimes you have to say it with gritted teeth. You have to say, well, I am responsible. I am responsible. But the more you repeat this, I am responsible, I am responsible, I am responsible, it comes easier and easier. Eventually it gets to the point where as soon as you think of that person or situation, you can neutralize the thought by the law of substitution by saying, wait a minute, I am responsible. I am responsible. There's a beautiful line that you can use also. in dealing with difficult people. It goes back to self-esteem, and it also has to do with eliminating negative emotions, is say something like this: no matter what you say or do, I'm still a valuable and worthwhile person. Or, no matter what happens, I am still a valuable and worthwhile person.
So I'm gonna stop it right there. But the negative emotion tree was lit. The people that missed it, I really feel sorry for them. I'm actually at my 2-hour mark. This is where I stop myself. So everything from this point forward will be new to me. But yeah, y'all already know what I negative emotions, and that's why I do what I do. Is like, because I know how we move. We all move the same way. We quick to blame somebody, and I ain't gonna front. I'm definitely one of the ones that blame. My girl tell me I blame her all the time. You always blaming somebody. So yeah, to stop blaming, to cut down the negative emotions, that sounds like something that's doable. So, think about that when you about to blame somebody for anything. You know what I mean? Even though you know they did it, don't judge them. You just gotta let it go. Don't say nothing about it. I know it's hard. I know you gotta get your point across, but you just gotta let it go. So I'm gonna let this live go, and I'm gonna tell you, like I always tell you, appreciate every present moment, because that's why we have the gift of life. That's why it's a gift, because a gift is a present, and a present moment